In the dark edge of the galaxy, far from busy trade routes and shining city worlds, a small listening post floated in silence. Only 2 alien operators worked there, bored and half asleep, watching endless streams of meaningless signals pass by. For years, nothing unusual had ever happened. Then, one quiet shift, a sound broke the routine, repeating signal, faint but clear. At first, they thought it was just static, but the pattern was too perfect, too deliberate. One of them leaned closer to the screen. "This is not natural," he whispered. His partner frowned and began decoding. The sound was strange, deep, and filled with pauses like a heartbeat in space. After several minutes, a voice emerged from the static. The voice spoke in a language neither of them understood, but there was something about it that made their scales crawl. It was not alien. It was different. The station's system identified the language. The translation code had been locked. For centuries, buried in restricted files, with trembling hands, the operator broke the seal. The translation appeared in cold letters, "We are coming back." They stared at the screen in silence. The system gave a classification for the voice's origin species 07, the bipeds, humans. But that was impossible, according to every galactic. Record humans had vanished more than 1,000 years ago, their homeworld destroyed in a war no one liked to talk about. The files said extinction. History said they were gone forever. The operator sent an urgent report to the Galactic Council. Within hours, a black ship with no markings arrived. Masked officers came aboard, erasing all records of the signal. Operators were told to forget what they had heard, or they would be transferred to deep sector duty, a polite way of saying they would never be seen again. In the capital city, the council gathered in a sealed chamber. 12 leaders of 12 great civilizations sat around a long table, their faces grim. The signal played once more, echoing in the chamber. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, an elder of the Zalari race broke the silence. "It is them." His voice shook. "They are not extinct." Some tried to deny it. Could be a trick. Pirates. Imposters. But others remembered the stories of the war that the council pretended never happened. It's the way the bipeds had fought the unbeatable fleet and somehow won. They remembered how humans had turned the tide in days when whole planets fell. They remembered something darker, too. The stories that humans could make stars disappear. Outside the chamber, our young alien historian named Zarek stood in the shadow of a tall column, pretending to study his datapad. He was not supposed to be here, but his mentor worked as a records clerk for the council, and Zarek had found a way inside. He had heard rumors about the bipeds all his life, but the elders always laughed them off. Now he saw their fear. With his own eyes, he watched as one council member demanded, "Destroy all traces. No one must know. Not the public, not even the fleets." Another replied, "If they have returned, secrecy will not stop them." Voices rose. Some called for defense. Others called for surrender before war began. At the far end of the table, a tall, thin alien with silver eyes finally spoke. "Exiled them once," he said quietly. "We erased their history. If they have returned, they will not forgive. And if they still have what they had before, the galaxy will belong to them again." The meeting ended with one decision lock. Down all travel to the sector where the signal came from. Patrols would be doubled. Anyone caught investigating would be arrested. The council's public announcement would say nothing about humans. Instead, they would tell the galaxy that the sector was unsafe due to dangerous radiation storms. Zarek slipped away before the guards could see him. His mind raced. He had studied many ancient wars, but the records of the last great war were incomplete. Too many gaps, too many erased lines. Now he understood why. Someone had wanted the truth. Buried. Someone had feared what the bipeds could do. That night, in his small apartment on the lower levels of the city, Zarek opened a forbidden archive his mentor had once shown him. He found an old image grainy, but clear enough to see the shape of a human face. The eyes in the picture seemed to look directly at him, as if they knew he was watching. Beneath the image were words in the same old language as the signal. Translation read, "We remember everything." As Rick felt a chill run through him.
Yes.
What could a species remember after 1,000 years? What had they been doing all this time? He thought about the fear in the council chamber. The way powerful leaders, beings who commanded fleets and controlled entire worlds, had spoken in hushed voices. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the city lights outside his window. Somewhere far beyond those stars, humans were alive. They were coming back. The question that burned in Zarik's mind was not why they had returned, but what they wanted. In the silence of his room, he replayed the signal. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but in that calm he felt the weight of something unstoppable. The last words echoed again, low and certain, across the darkness of space. "We are coming back." And Zarik knew nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Far away from the busy trade lanes, in the heart of the galactic capital, the council's sealed chamber still carried the echo of the message that had shaken its members. 12 leaders of 12 civilizations sat in uneasy silence. None of them wanted to be the first to speak, but the fear in the room was thick, almost alive. The humans, the bipeds, were not a myth anymore. The voice in the signal was real. The elders of the Shiren race shifted nervously in their seats. "If this becomes public," one of them said, "the younger species will panic. Our control will weaken." Another replied sharply, "Our control will vanish when the humans arrive. You have read the same records I have. If even half of it is true, they cannot be stopped." A third counselor, scales glistening under the chamber's dim lights, growled, "This is fear speaking. We beat them once, we can do it again." His words were confident, but his claws tapped rapidly against the table. Everyone remembered that the official records called the war a victory for the council. But none of them could forget how many fleets had vanished, how many worlds had been burned before the bipeds were gone. In the quiet corners of the city, whispers were already spreading. The message had not been contained completely. A few technicians, smugglers, and law-level archivists had overheard pieces of the signal before the council erased it. Among them was Zarik, the young historian who had seen the council's fear. With his own eyes, Zarik spent his nights digging deeper into hidden archives. Each forbidden file told a different story about the humans. In some, they were heroes saving smaller worlds from extinction when no one else would help. In others, they were monsters destroying fleets, bending the laws of nature itself to win battles in hours that should have lasted years. The most disturbing thing was that no two accounts agreed. Except for one detail, every civilization that fought them remembered them forever. One night, doubt doubted, as Zarik studied a cracked ancient data. Crystal, his screen flickered. A line of text appeared that wasn't in the file. The letters were old human script, rough and sharp. He quickly translated it. It read, "You will see us soon." His breath caught in his throat. How could they know he was looking? Was this a warning or an invitation? Meanwhile, the council moved quickly. Patrol ships began to seal off the sector where the signal had come from. Any vessel approaching was turned away or vanished without explanation. Official news channels reported nothing unusual, but in the underworld of the capital, smugglers and data brokers traded rumors of an old war race preparing to return in private strategy sessions. The council debated desperate measures. Some wanted to gather the combined fleets of the galaxy and strike the source before the humans could move. Others argued that such an attack might provoke something worse. One counselor, a massive insectoid from the Krix Dominion, hissed, "If they have been hiding for 1,000 years, they have been building. And if they have been building, we are already too late." Zarik's mentor, an old records keeper named Varus, noticed the young historian's obsession. One evening, he visited Zarik's apartment, bringing a small metal box wrapped in a thick cloth. "I should not give you this," Varus said, placing it on the table, "but if you are going to keep digging, you should see the truth for yourself." Inside the box was a shard of something that looked like glass, but it pulsed faintly with light. This, Varus whispered, was taken from a human ship at the end of the war. Our scientists never understood it. They said it was alive somehow, part of their technology we could never copy. As Zarek touched the shard, the faint light inside flared. Sound filled the room, a deep hum, followed by a voice. It was the same human voice from the intercepted signal, calm and certain. "We are closer than you think." Zarek froze. This was not an old recording. The voice was speaking to him now. The shard's glow faded, leaving the room in silence. But his heart was pounding. Somewhere beyond the sealed borders of the Council's maps, humans were moving. They knew about the Council's fear. They knew someone was watching. And if the voice was right, they were already on their way. Zarek had not slept for 3 nights. The shard from Varus still sat on his desk, dark and silent, but the memory of its voice refused to leave him. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard it again, calm, certain, close. "We are closer than you think?" He kept staring at the forbidden star charts in his datapad. The Council's maps showed nothing unusual in the sector where the signal had come from. It's just empty space and a warning label about radiation storms. But the old, unedited charts from the archives told a different story. They showed several habitable planets, a trade route that no longer existed, and something marked only as the gate. That region had been erased from all modern records after the humans disappeared. Late on the 4th night, Zarek found a file hidden inside another file, buried so deep it shouldn't have been possible to stumble across it by accident. It contained a single set of navigation coordinates. Alongside them were human letters burned into the data. Home. He didn't know if the humans had left this for someone to find, or if he was simply the first to notice. But one thing was certain: the Council would never let him near those coordinates. He would have to go himself. Stealing a ship from the capital was not easy, but Zarek had friends in the city's lower levels. A retired smuggler named Yelith owed him a favor, and after some persuasion, she agreed to loan him a small scout craft. "Whatever you're chasing out there," she warned, "you won't like what you find." The journey began quietly. The stars slid past in a steady rhythm, and the hum of the engines was the only sound. But as he neared the forbidden sector, strange signals began to bleed into his instrument's short bursts of static. Sometimes forming patterns, sometimes whispering in the old human tongue. He couldn't understand the words, but he felt the intent. Go back. Hours later, the ship's sensors picked up objects ahead. Satellites. They were ancient but still active, arranged like a wall across space. Each one pulsed with a soft red light. When he got closer, they came alive, broadcasting a clear message in both alien and human languages. "Turn back, ORB, erased." ZARYK hesitated. This was more than just a warning. It felt like a test. He eased the ship forward. Satellites didn't fire, but the red lights began to flash faster, and the static in his comms grew louder until it became a roar. Then, just as quickly, everything went silent. Beyond the satellite wall lay a dead star system. The sun was dim, almost black, and several planets were nothing more than shattered rocks. The remains of ships, thousands of them, drifted among. The debris twisted into shapes that didn't look like the result of weapons fire. It was as if something had broken them apart at the atomic level. A cold dread crept through Zarek. Was this the work of the humans, or had something else destroyed this place? Before he could decide whether to turn back, the ship's controls froze. The stars outside twisted, the shattered planets blurred, and a sudden pull yanked the ship forward as if space itself had opened a mouth to swallow him. The view ahead became a tunnel of light, spinning faster and faster. His ears rang, his vision blurred, and he felt the air grow heavy. When the light finally faded, he was no longer in the dead system. He was floating in a vast empty void, the distance lit by a pale, artificial glow. A massive station hung in space. It was larger than any structure he had ever seen, shaped like a ring wrapped around a black sphere. And then, as he stared at it in awe, a voice came through his comms. Not a recording, not static, a living voice. "Welcome, Zarek." His blood turned cold. They knew his name. Zarek's hands tightened on the controls. The voice had been clear, deep, and unmistakably human. He scanned his sensors, but the station ahead gave off almost no energy signature, as if it didn't exist. The cum crackled again. "Dock at Ring Gate 3. Do not deviate." The voice carried no threat, yet there was no room for refusal, against every instinct telling him to flee. Zarek guided the scout ship toward the enormous ring. As he drew closer, the details came into view: colossal panels covered in strange markings, long silver spires pointing outward into the void, and thousands of tiny lights moving along the structure like insects on a vast machine. Some of those lights broke away from the station and approached his ship. They were small, sleek craft with no visible weapons, yet something about them radiated precision and control. The docking bay opened like a dark mouth, swallowing his ship in silence. Inside, the air shimmered faintly, and gravity shifted beneath him. His ship settled onto a landing platform, and before he could unbuckle, the cockpit hatch opened on its own. Zur stepped out slowly. The bay was massive, lined with smooth walls and tall archways. Figures waited for him at the far end. They were humanoid, taller than he expected, their movements unnervingly smooth. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, not like a reflection, but as if something inside them was alive. One of them stepped forward. Her voice matched the one from the cum. "You've come far for someone the council keeps on a short leash." Zarek swallowed hard. You're human?" She tilted her head slightly, as if considering the question. "We are what remains of them, what they became, and what they will be again." He had studied thousands of species in his life, but none had ever made him feel this way. It wasn't fear exactly, it was the crushing sense of standing before something that had already calculated every move he might make. They led him through the station's corridors, where enormous windows looked out into the void. Empty, hidden in the darkness, vast shapes drifted silently. Ships, thousands of them, each one unlike any design he had seen, their hulls absorbing light instead of reflecting it. "You've been hiding," Zarek said quietly. The woman glanced at him, her faintly glowing eyes locking on his. "We didn't hide, we stepped aside. The galaxy wasn't ready for us, but now it will be." They stopped at a chamber at the very heart of the station. Inside was something vast, a black sphere the size of a city, suspended in the air by invisible force. Its surface shifted like liquid, glowing faintly in patterns that almost looked like writing. The air around it thrummed with a deep, steady pulse like a heartbeat. "What is it?" Zarek asked. The human leader smiled faintly. "Memory. Every victory, every loss, every idea they feared, every name they erased. We kept it all." Zarek felt the weight of her words. The council had feared the humans because of their weapons. But this was different. This was something far more dangerous than weapons. He stepped closer, feeling the vibration through his bones. "What do you want from me?" The woman's smile faded. "To tell you what they will never admit, and to decide if you will stand with us when we return." In the silence that followed, Zarek realized one thing: the humans weren't just coming back to exist in the galaxy. They were coming back to change it forever. The chamber was cold, but Zarek could feel the faint heat coming from the massive black sphere. The humans stood in silence, as if giving him time to take in what he was seeing. The pulsing hum filled the air, slow and steady, like the heartbeat of something ancient and alive. One of the tall humans, an older man with silver hair, stepped forward. "This is the archive core," he said. "It holds every thought, every design, every moment in our history. Not just words, not just pictures, entire minds, entire civilizations. We remember everything the council tried to erase." Wisserex. The voice was low. "Why keep it here, hidden?" The man's eyes narrowed slightly because they would destroy it. Not because of what we could do with weapons, but because of what we could do with ideas. The woman who had first greeted him stepped to the sphere, placing her hand gently against its surface. Light rippled outward from her touch, forming ghostly images in the air. Zarek saw battles fought in impossible places, ships tearing through, storms of fire, soldiers standing against enemies that blotted out the sky. He saw humans walking alongside species he had never seen, laughing, working, building. Then the images darkened. He saw the council fleet surrounding Earth, heard the roar of 1 billion voices calling for surrender, and then nothing. They thought they ended us, the woman said quietly. They didn't. We left, and we learned. More images bloomed. In the air, strange devices bending light, weapons that didn't fire bullets or beams but seemed to fold space itself, worlds terraformed in days. Zarek's mind raced. If even half of what he was seeing was real, the council fleets would be nothing against this. You plan to? Come back, Zarek said carefully. The woman's eyes glowed faintly brighter. We plan to return what was. Stolen, not just our place in the galaxy as truth. They've ruled with lies for 1,000 years. When we arrive, every being will know what really happened. Zarek hesitated. If the truth causes war, the silver-haired man's voice was calm. Then the war was always waiting. We will not fire first, but we will finish it. The sphere pulsed again, and this time, Zarek heard something inside his head, a whisper, in a language he did not know, but somehow understood. You have seen the lie. Will you help break it? He staggered back. It spoke to me. It chose you, the woman said. Not everyone hears it. That means you will decide more than you know. Zarek's pulse quickened. He thought of the council chamber, the fear in the eyes of the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. I thought of the forbidden coordinates, the satellite wall, the dead, star system, and now. This? What happens if I refuse? He asked. The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned and looked out through the high window at the vast fleet hidden in the dark. Then you will leave here alive, she said finally. But the next time you see us will not be as a guest. For a long moment, Zarek said nothing. He didn't know whether to feel honored, terrified, or both. But deep down he knew one thing: the galaxy as it was could not survive what he had just seen. Somewhere in the shadows of the station, a deep tone rang out, vibrating through the walls. The humans turned toward the sound. They're ready, the silver-haired man said. Zaryk swallowed hard. Ready for what? The woman looked back at him, her glowing eyes steady. To go home. Zarek barely had time to catch his breath. Before alarms echoed through the station, red lights pulsed along the walls, illuminating the humans' calm, focused faces. The black sphere at the chamber's center thrummed faster, now vibrating through the floor beneath him. They are moving, the silver-haired man said, his voice low but firm. The fleet will exit the void gate in 5 minutes. We'll see. What the galaxy has forgotten. Zarek followed them to the observation deck. Outside, the blackness of space stretched infinitely. Then, slowly, lights appeared at first small, distant dots, but they grew in number and brilliance. Entire fleets of ships, each unlike anything Zarek had ever seen, emerged from a shimmering corridor in space. The ships were silent, elegant, almost alive, their hulls absorbing starlight instead of reflecting it. He felt a cold thrill run down his spine. How many are there? He whispered. The woman beside him did not answer directly. Instead, she gestured toward the ships. Enough to remind the galaxy that we were never gone. Enough to ensure that the lies of the council cannot survive another day. The fleet moved in perfect synchrony, forming complex geometric patterns. In space that seemed impossible, as if obeying commands faster than any human mind could comprehend. Zarek noticed something strange. Each ship pulsed faintly in a rhythm similar to the sphere's heartbeat. The fleet and the archive core were connected. They share a consciousness, Zarek murmured. They do, the silver-haired man confirmed. Not just ships, but every human here. We remember everything. We act as one, but we are still ourselves. That unity is why we can return like this. A soft hum filled the observation deck. Zarek felt it in his chest, in his head, in his bones. The humans turned their gaze outward, toward the sectors controlled by the Council. Toward worlds that had forgotten them, toward a galaxy that had built its peace on fear and lies. Then the first transmissions began. The stars themselves seemed to flicker as the fleet's signals cut across communication networks. Every Council outpost, every planetary defense station, Every fleet was forced to listen. And the message was simple, calm, and devastating. We are home. Zarek watched as systems went dark in fear. Fleets scrambled, planets sent urgent messages, but the humans did not attack. They did not need to. The mere presence of their fleet was enough. The galaxy had forgotten their power. But now no one could ignore it. One of the younger humans turned to Zarek. "You see now," she said softly, "this is not destruction. This is correction. The galaxy has been sleeping, and we have woken." The silver-haired man's eyes glimmered. "How soon? They will remember what we are. And when they do, the Council will have no choice but to answer for the lies they told for 1,000 years." Zarek's heart pounded. He realized something. Terrifying and thrilling at the same time. The humans weren't just back. They were unstoppable. Not because of their weapons, not just because of their fleet, but because the galaxy itself could not unsee them. The void gate behind the fleet shimmered once more, and the last of the hidden ships emerged, completing the formation. Zarek felt a strange calm settle over him. The humans had returned. The galaxy would never be the same, and yet, deep in the shadows of the Council, whispers began to stir. They are here. One leader muttered, "We are powerless." The Council chamber was enormous, its dome ceiling glittering with artificial stars. Representatives from every major system sat in tense silence, their eyes flicking nervously to the main viewport. For the first time in a millennium, they were not looking at reports, not listening to diplomats. They were staring at the human fleet. Every ship floated in perfect formation, a silent wall of light and shadow. The Council had prepared defenses, but now they looked small, fragile, and insignificant. The hum of the humans' presence vibrated through the chamber itself, making some counselors clutch their arms in disbelief. The central console flickered, and a single human appeared on the largest holoscreen. She was tall, her glowing eyes calm but sharp, scanning the chamber as if she could see every lie, every secret, every fear. "I am Lyria," she said. "We are the humans the galaxy tried to erase. You called us extinct. You wrote us out of history. You ruled in lies and fear." Her voice was steady, but it carried the weight of centuries. One counselor, pale and trembling, found the courage to speak. We were told you were gone, that you would never return, Lyrius." Eyes narrowed slightly. "You were told what you wanted to believe. You were warned, too. We left messages, signs, but you chose ignorance. You thought us weak. You were wrong." Another counselor tried to interject, waving a hand toward the viewport. "We control the fleets." "We can," Lyria raised a hand, and the counselor froze mid-sentence. The humans did not raise weapons, but their presence was sharper than any attack. "Control?" she asked softly. "You control nothing? Your fleets are scattered, your secrets shallow, and your alliance is hollow. The galaxy itself remembers us, whether you admit it or not." Murmur ran through the chamber. But the counselors' confidence wavered. They had ruled for 1,000 years, yet here they were, powerless before beings they had long considered gone. Zarek stood to the side, feeling the tension and awe in equal measure. He had seen the humans' power, but hearing them speak it was different. "It was the authority of truth," Lyria continued, her voice now cutting through every doubt. "We have come not to destroy, but to restore. Every world, every species, every life erased by fear and lies will have its voice again. You have a choice. Join in rebuilding or step aside. We do not need war to correct the galaxy, but we will not be ignored." The chamber was silent. Every counselor knew there was no bluff here. These humans had returned not as conquerors, but as arbiters of truth. Finally, the oldest counselor, his hands shaking, spoke. "And if we resist," Lyria's eyes glowed faintly brighter, the light reflecting across the room, "then history will record who chose fear over justice, and you will not like what it says." The message hit every mind in the chamber. They had underestimated the humans for 1,000 years. Now they realized underestimating them again would be catastrophic. Outside, the human fleet shifted slightly, a subtle but unmistakable warning. The galaxy had changed in an instant. The humans were no longer the vanished species everyone thought they had been. They were the reckoning the stars had been waiting for. Zarek felt the weight of what he had witnessed settle over him. This was more than a return. It was a revolution. Without a single shot fired, and somewhere deep in the chamber, the counselor whispered in fear, almost to himself, "We were never ready for this." The council chamber remained frozen, the weight of Lyria's words pressing down on every representative. Outside, the human fleet held position, silent but alive, as if the stars themselves had chosen to listen. The galaxy had never seen such. Power paired with patience, and now the council understood that their reign of lies was over. No one moved, no one dared speak. The silence was absolute, a quiet heavier than any battle or threat. Even the oldest counselor, who had trembled moments ago, realized that words were useless. The humans did not demand compliance, they demanded truth. Truth had no equal. Zarek stood at the edge of the chamber. Watching Lyria, she raised a hand, not in aggression, but in invitation. "You have had your chance to shape the galaxy." With fear, she said, "Now it is time to shape it with knowledge, justice, and memory. Step aside, or be remembered as those who tried to hide the light." The representatives shifted uncomfortably. The fleet outside pulsed subtly, almost like a living heartbeat, and the light from the ships filled the room with a calm, unyielding brilliance. In that moment, every lie the council had told, every secret they had buried felt exposed under the human gaze. Minutes passed. Hours, maybe. Zarek could not tell. Finally, the oldest counselor bowed his head. We yield," he said, his voice hollow but sincere. "We see now that resistance is meaningless. The galaxy will follow your truth." A ripple of relief, surprise, and unease spread through the chamber. Lyria nodded once, sharply. "Then, let it begin." The humans moved with quiet precision. Fleet commanders transmitted data across every system. Knowledge long hidden, inventions long forbidden, and histories rewritten by fear were shared openly. Worlds that had forgotten the humans now remembered, and civilizations awoke from the chains of lies that had bound them for centuries. Zarek watched as alliances shifted. Systems recalibrated, and a wave of understanding spread. The galaxy was alive again, no longer controlled by fear, but by the shared memory and wisdom of those who had survived attempts to erase them. From the observation deck, Zarek saw Lyria and her people stand in calm authority. They had returned not as conquerors, not even as judges. They had returned as the force that reminded the galaxy of its own potential. The council sat in stunned silence. Their power diminished not by weapons or fire, but by truth. They had provoked humans once, thinking the species extinct, powerless, irrelevant. Now the silence they faced was heavier than any fleet could create, was final. It was complete. And in that silence, the galaxy understood something new. Humans had returned not to rule, not to destroy, but to awaken every star, every world, every mind that had been dulled by fear. Zarek exhaled slowly, a mixture of awe and relief flooding him. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had changed the galaxy forever. And in doing so, left every being with a simple, undeniable truth. Underestimating humanity was the greatest mistake any species could make. The stars outside shimmered gently, as if acknowledging the new order. And in the quiet hum of the human fleet, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never forget the silence of the council. The era of fear was over. The era of truth had begun.